It took me decades to learn this, is that if I didn't imply or infer or let people know that I had something to sell a little bit later, when I got to the bit where I was pitching myself or a product or service, people are like, what? I didn't sign up for this.
The reason for so much frustration in the world is just misaligned expectations. So if we just set it straight right out of the gate, hey, I'm going to give you lots of good stuff and I'll give you a way to continue if you want to do that. People are like, cool, I know what to expect versus, I was blindsided.
The more specialized you go, the more you just attract clients like a magnet.
The key is to start way before you feel like you have the credibility or you have all your stuff together. Get out there, raise your hand, and there's nothing like having a speaking engagement get accepted where you're like, guess what? I get to build this.
This might seem like a daft thing to say, but one of the most important skills that you can have as a business owner is your ability to talk. And I'm not just talking about talking with potential customers and clients. I'm talking about talking over webinars, on stages, in front of live audiences in unexpected contexts. Being able to leverage your speaking skills to grow your business is one of the most powerful tools that any of us can have. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. To help me out, I have Krista Martin. She's the founder of Make Your Mark. She does exactly this. She helps coaches, business owners leverage speaking to grow their business. She talks about things like how to talk to convert, how to structure an offer, how to speak on the stage. But most interesting to me is before I hit record, Krista mentioned that her first business was a margarita machine business?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Absolutely. And, it was, my husband and I always believed we could do work and get paid doing things we love to do. And we both love drinking margaritas. So we went over a margarita, decided, why not have a margarita machine rental business? So we started that, and it was a wild adventure in lots of ways, but it was very fun and not hugely profitable, but it was a good time to say the least.
It's so funny because I can see the thought process. It's like, I like margaritas. You like margaritas.
Everybody likes margaritas.
We are trying to sell them into restaurants.
Of course, we developed partnerships. I mean, I took it all serious. My husband was like, he was the delivery guy, but we found the best machine. So we actually had the margarita machine rental. It was called Marga Rental. So it was very catchy. Ooh. I mean, can't beat that name. And we did partner with some Mexican restaurants nearby and all kinds of funny stories of us driving Mexican restaurant vans, my husband and I, to deliver a bunch of margarita machines to. It was just a very, very funny experience. And we learned a lot. And then we had children and decided, maybe we'd focus on not the alcohol business.
Well, I also like how you took it so seriously, because a lot of people, if they start a business, they don't take it seriously. And I'm sure that you're of the opinion, if you're going to do something, you should do it well.
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, I had established relationships with some of the liquor distributors near us in the stores, because if people are buying tequila, they're probably going to make margaritas, or the people at checkout, would hear people asking, who do you know that has a margarita machine that we could rent? So we did that, and then also looked from the kids' angle, not the margarita angle, but to be able to do frozen drinks for kids that are virgin. We're leaving out the tequila or adult portion of it, but that was another way to do it too. So we got to know way too much about what goes into margaritas, the power sources you need to fuel those machines, and but it was a lot of fun and a ton of learning.
Because your background's in sales, am I correct?
Yes, sales and marketing. And so, but
I can see how they come together.
The margaritas?
Well, what I'm imagining here is I can see that you've got the skills, you've obviously got an eye for detail, and then you have to go into these restaurants, which brings us full circle to the topic, and you have to communicate with a stranger and tell them why they should be stocking your machine.
Yes. And really what we did too is places could rent our machines, or if you're having this kick butt party at your house you could rent it, and then all your friends are going to like you even more because you had this cool margarita machine at your party. So we did that individually as well, which again, I want to keep myself on track because I could tell you funny stories of picking up the margarita machine at people's houses the day after the party.
Ooh.
When you could imagine the kind of scenes you walk into with that. So that was another reason we had kids and we were like, we need to straighten out our lifestyle, which I'm kidding, but not kidding. But to your point of really having those intentional conversations to understand the need and the goals of the other person, of the restaurant, of the person who runs a liquor store, and how it benefits them versus making it all about, look at these great machines, don't you want to offer these to everybody? Really turning it to solving a problem that they're having and making them be the genius, the expert to their customers that are coming in, on a regular basis.
Well, I love that because that allows us to flip back to the topic. Now, what I really like about your business is that it is a double down niche business. What that means is, at least the way that I see it, is that you've got a very specific target audience. It's largely coaches, and you do one specific thing, which is helping with the presenting and the professional speaking. What I see most people do is they'll do a little bit of sales and marketing for everyone, which I'm sure you could have.
100%.
So how did you go down here? How did you go, you know what? This is a combo here that I can really own.
This was, and I know for any perfectionists or recovering perfectionists that are listening to this, it's hard to hear, but I made a bunch of mistakes along the way, or I made a lot of incorrect choices. And they weren't necessarily wrong or failures. What I mean by that is I said I wanted to be a career coach because I thought that's what I wanted to do. Then I thought I wanted to be an executive coach. And then I committed and went all in on being a coach to mompreneurs. And then once I finally landed on coaches, and I said, well, look, this is a younger version of me. I'm actually passionate about this person and helping them because I know exactly the challenges they went through. But then I also started out as really, I could help you with any system strategy, business, team building, like anything you needed related to your business, I could help you with. And I did do that. It was exhausting and draining because I always tried to get everybody to go to speaking. Not everybody wanted to. And then I said, okay, to your point, the double down piece of saying, okay, who do I love serving? What is my unique genius? What could I talk about literally all day and not get bored? And I can talk about talking, to use your words from earlier.
Before we get back to the episode, if you want to shortcut some of the tactics and strategies you're learning today, make sure you unlock our B2B client acquisition toolbox for free. It has over 20 guides and resources, calculators and templates to jumpstart your next B2B client acquisition campaign. Go to b2bschool.co/podcast. Go to that place to get the good stuff. Hit pause, go do that now before you get back to the episode. I heard a really good example, and it was, I think someone was talking about Dilbert the comic. And Dilbert the comic can draw, he's probably in the top 25% of people who can draw, right? So 1 in 4. Then he realized that he was funny. So he went, I can draw and I can be funny, so I'll become a comic. So then he's in the top 10%. Then he had this unique background, which is unusual to comic artists, where he came from these corporate backgrounds with boring BS, and he was able to write these funny comics about people in corporate settings, and suddenly he was in the top 1%. Yeah. But as you said, he discovered an audience that he loves, or at least a topic that he loves, a skill set that was perfect for him. What did you say? Unique genius. And then something that he could talk about all day long. Yeah.
And I'm sure you see this all the time too, and it's just human nature to resist that, though, to say, no, but that might be too specific. I'm going to go broad, and then it ends up, I call it the spaghetti strategy, where there's a little bit of energy, thrown in a bunch of different directions, and you're tired without the results of, like you said, what Dilbert did to really then be the standout, in the top 1%.
I think it's like a fear thing, isn't it? It's a scarcity thing. If I go too narrow, there won't be enough clients for me. And then we've just discovered again and again that the more narrow you go, the more specialized you go, the more you just attract clients like a magnet.
Oh, Yes, and it's so easy to know where to find them, which is what I love too. And working with clients on marketing is if you're looking to work with a coach that wants to leverage speaking, you can go to certain events versus if you want to work with a plumber that, has been in business for 10 years, and I don't know what plumbers have been in business 10 years want, but if you're looking for him, you're going to go to a different place, which is great. And it makes it simple versus I almost think about it like you're walking down the street and you're like, you could be a client, you could be a client. Instead of saying, no, I got to go to this event, this conference, or this
Or
is
you
the
just walk
topic.
straight into the Mexican restaurant and you say, do
And
you need a margarita machine?
yes, you do. Or maybe I've been working all day and don't have any clients, so I need a margarita myself. Maybe that's what it looks like.
That's cool. All right, let's talk about this. Let's talk about talking for clients, talking to get clients. What are some of the scenarios that you help your clients with?
We really focus, and there's kind of three different tiers of level of building this out. But the first place we focus is speaking 45 minutes to 60 minutes. So not that long. It could be virtual, in person, but having a talk that you can give for free in front of other people's audiences. So you don't have to have the email list of 50,000 people, but you can go offer immense value to people that are already gathering your ideal client. If they're interested or inspired, they raise their hand and they set up a call with you. I don't encourage people to pitch from the stage or sell or that kind of stuff right out of the gates. Let's master sales conversations, positioning yourself as an expert and actually converting from that talk first.
So there's three scenarios there. There was the sales conversation at one level. We're having a conversation with one-to-one. The other extreme is from the stage. Let's call it a TED talk. Something really big.
Yeah.
And then somewhere in the middle, you said you can talk for free to someone else's audience. Let's unpack that a little bit. You mentioned did you say 25 minutes? Did I hear that?
Oh, 45 to 60 minutes is usually what I
45 to 60
recommend.
minutes.
I have done 5-minute talks before and had good results from that, but I don't recommend starting there. I like the about an hour, to
Yeah.
establish yourself, your credibility, build know, like, and trust, deliver value, and then get the audience activated to say, Krista can help me solve this problem that's been so, just bothering me for the last whatever amount of time.
Especially, someone who's new to speaking. And this is why I thought you said 25 minutes. And I went, ooh, that's hard. But someone that's new to speaking is going to need a little bit more time, at
Yes.
least 45 minutes, and then Q&A at the end and some other things. So I can see why it's that amount of time. Let's drill down into this piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
If I wanted to, I don't know, leverage my own skills while leveraging the audiences of other people, what might be some of the mistakes I might make?
One of the biggest mistakes that I see is people wait. So they wait to get invited. They wait for the conference speaker to say, hey, James, I've been thinking about you. And your content has been so riveting that I've seen online. I want you to speak. They wait for that knock on the door, which can happen and does, but it's not usually as quick as we like it to be. So I always believe that we get to go first in our business. We get to show that we're serious. And guess what? Raise our hand and say, hey, James, or hey, conference speaker, I've got some value. Let's talk about what is your process for whatever, the conference, whatever that looks like. The other part is that they don't talk about something, or the way I teach it is with clients, we build out their very first talk based on sharing their framework for getting their client results. So that's great for a couple of reasons. One, it positions them immediately as an expert because they made that up, whatever the framework is. And I say that jokingly, but they did. So it's unique to them and the way they serve clients. And it also positions them as an expert because they've got a system. They've got a way they help clients get results. And so the real mistake is that they're talking about anything under the sun versus their unique genius where they can stand proud, feel confident, and convert. And then another mistake I see very regularly, and I'm not saying that I'm above these mistakes because I made every single one of them, probably way more times than I'd like to say, but is not having an actual process for a talk that converts. So similar to the last one, they don't have any framework. They don't know how to activate their audience. They're getting up there and I call it a PS close, where it's like, oh, and by the way, I'm Krista. Here's my LinkedIn profile. Let me know if you're interested in free stuff, or like something so vague. But we teach a 6-part framework for a talk that converts. 2 of those 6 are the call to action. So making sure you don't have a PS, I call it a PS close or call to action. You want to really set that up right, and it feels and comes across as very non-salesy.
I'm gonna reverse engineer this and we'll unpack this. This is really cool. So if we're looking at mistakes here, one of the mistakes is waiting to get invited, sitting by the phone or the email. Why would they invite me? I know this. They go, I saw someone else speak at that event and they've got nowhere near the level of skill that I have. That's the first mistake. The second mistake is not having a method that you can teach. And I get this all the time. People want to be on my podcast or they want to speak on one of my webinars and they go, what would you speak about? And they go, I've got lots of experience. And I go, yes, sure you do. That's great. But I want to kill a topic, usually beginning with a how-to headline, how to get result.
Yes.
Which is why we need some sort of methodology. And as Krista just said, if you've got a methodology, you're the expert. And it might be the same thing that everybody else has probably been teaching for decades anyway, because most things are not particularly new, but you put your own skin on it, you give it your own structure, you call it the 7 P's method, I don't know, and then suddenly you're there, you're talking about your topic. And then the third one is the meandering talk, where you're just going all over the place because there's no structure. I'm going to reverse engineer this, and then I'm going to ask Krista for some advice. Number one, if we want to be proactive about getting meetings, it'd be great to hear some ideas. Number 2, if there's a framework or a method that we can teach, what's a good way to do a framework? And number 3 is the meandering talk. And I want to start there because you mentioned that there were 6. There are 6 things to get right. Let's start there and let's unpack these 3 big problems. How do I not have a meandering framework?
This is one of my favorite things to do in the world. It's probably not a huge surprise, but it's to create systems because they're repeatable. And one of the processes or the systems that we teach, I call it a talk that converts. The first part is to really validate them and help them see that they're in the right place. The second one, and I'll just go through it kind of quickly over these because there's a lot of nuances to it, but the second part is establishing credibility and connecting to the audience through your story. So they're like, oh, I see myself in James' story. He's so super cool about all this stuff. The third part is seating, which is my favorite, and most people skip this. And it's not seating like we're sitting in seats, but seating like we're planting things because you're planting an idea in their mind. Hey, guess what? I'm going to give you as much as I can in our 45 minutes together, and there's no way I can teach you everything you need. So at the end of the session, you'll have a chance to book a call to take this a step further. You're telling them, I'm going to give you an offer at the end.
Before we get back to the episode, if you prefer to listen to your content, perhaps while driving your car or at the gym, if that's you, then go find me on your favorite podcast service, maybe iTunes or Spotify. Search for the B2B School, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification tab, and that way you'll never miss an episode ever again. Now, let's get back to the show. I love this because it took me decades to learn this, and I'm not kidding. I did my first speaking gig 20 years ago, and then probably about in the last 3 years, I realized, for example, just this third one here, seating, is that if I didn't imply or infer or let people know that I had something to sell a little bit later, when I got to the bit where I was pitching myself or a product or service, people are like, what? I didn't sign up for this. Yes. Whereas if I brought it up, right at the beginning, suddenly everyone's like, oh yeah, he mentioned that. And everyone's cool with it.
Absolutely. I think the reason for so much frustration in the world is just misaligned expectations. So if we just set it straight right out of the gate, hey, I'm going to give you lots of good stuff, and I'll give you a way to continue if you want to do that. People are like, cool, I know what to expect versus, I was blindsided, which it's not like
and
you
it's
did
reassuring.
anything.
I know this as well when I'm on a sales call, all sorts of contexts. When I say that, if I say at the beginning of a sales call, saying a little bit later, if I think we continue working together, I'll give you the options. Is that cool? People are like, oh yeah, that's cool. And then suddenly there's this weight that's lifted. It's sort of like, I understand the quid pro quo now. You're being generous because you want this outcome. Whereas before that, they're going, why is this person generous? It's a funny thing.
It is. Well, and then it's like, it feels like a bait and switch otherwise to us as the presenter or even in a sales conversation or on the recipient side of it. So definitely the seating part is super, super important.
To go a little bit out of the box for a second, incidentally,
Yeah.
guys and girls, this is what we do with our emails, by the way. Our third email, we make it clear that we're going to be selling something. Otherwise, we get to the seventh email in an email sequence and people are going, you've been giving me all this value and now you want to sell me something? I thought we were friends. And I'm like, well, no, now, I'm here now to sell you something. But our third email, we actually tackled that one. What's number 4? What's number 4 on our list?
Number 4, and this is usually where people jump right in, is the content. So this is where we're sharing your framework, we're sharing your process, we're sharing your steps, whatever that looks like. Your unique genius is showcased here. And we really do a lot of activation messaging, not just education messaging, which is an important distinction because most coaches love to go in the deep end of the education, but we really want to activate them. And then the 5th and 6th steps, which I got tongue twisted there, are both the call to action components. The first one is to remind them of the pain. Like, James, I'm not sure why you showed up today. It might be because you're tired of chasing every single marketing trick or tactic that falls across or comes across your inbox. It might be because you want to do more coaching and less of the marketing stuff. So you reconnect them so they're like, oh yeah, I have this problem that I want to solve. I remember why I'm here. And then the final step that I teach is a call to action, and I call it 2 choices. So, Krista, you've got 2 choices. You always have 2 choices. You can keep going down the path you've been going. In 6 months, a year, you're going to be right where you are. That is a great option if you're okay staying in the same place. But there's also a second option. You can take new action. That's for you today if blah, 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 blah. And I saw your eyes light up with that. So I'm excited to see.
I love talking with people that know their stuff. I mean, and as well too, breaking it down into 6 steps that most people can follow is genius as well too, because I spend a lot of time thinking about this stuff. I mean, I do a private webinar at least once a week. I do a public webinar at least once a month. I do sales calls 2 days a month.
Okay.
I've got someone else that does the sales calls. And I'm looking at this. And so number 1, you said validation. This is no different to us a little bit earlier talking about what I call double down consulting, where you go, you are my target audience. And if you want to validate someone, it's really easy to say, I do this for the coaches. And the coaches in the room go, that's me. Or I do it for this audience. And they go, that's me. I'm in the right place. I love it how you said credibility/story. Again, this is another mistake I see people do. They do the webinar and they go, oh, this is the bit where I have to build the credibility piece. So they have a slide with 7 different dot points that talk about all their achievements. Yeah. Here's a little bit of a sneaky hack that I do that you might like. We talked about the seeding bit. That's number 3. Yeah. Number 4, you've got the content bit and you run through the framework. Now, you said activation messaging. So when we're teaching in a framework, we might have 3 things we want to teach, for example. And we go, I teach this, teach this, teach this. But will you tell me, what do you mean by activation messaging?
It's basically when you connect someone to the emotional side of themselves. So it could be through a story. Hey, I want to tell you this great client, James, he had this breakthrough result, blah, 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 blah. You help them see what's possible. And really, you see me moving my arms. But the vision, the success that they want is always on this side of my office for some reason. And the pain they're in is on this side. I don't know exactly why. But you connect them to both of those places, helping them see what's possible for them when they do this step and how important that step is to their results, and then they're going to get these great results that James has, and look at what it looks like for James, what it feels like, and the impact for James. Like, those words are key in helping to create that activation. And then you remind them, or, when James came to us, he was still doing A, B, and C, staring at his computer, wondering, when is someone going to raise his hand and, ask me to speak? And I'm kind of making up an example, but they can see themselves in that.
It's about the feels.
Yes,
it's about the feels, and it also as we get to like 5 and 6, when we talk about the pain and the CTA, these activation messages and these stories can also be used to handle those objections that people are facing when they get to there. So you can tell the story, which gets the feel, which makes them feel like they should be taking action. But the scenario that I was going to give, because I do this stuff a lot, obviously. Yeah. And if you're listening to this, I want you to absolutely follow Krista's sequence of steps 1 to 6 in a sequence. But the tricky thing that I do is, because I go into things fast and hard, I do the validation piece with a couple games. Then I talk about the A state and the B state, the pain. I introduce an agenda, which is always about, we've just talked about the pain. This is the inverse of that. But the bit that I was thinking of, and as well too, I do the seeding bit when I do the agenda, and a little bit later, whatever it is. You'll love this, Krista. I often teach about sales and marketing. So I say, a little bit later, I might even go hard and pitch something. But here's the thing that I know about business people. Successful people love a good pitch. Everybody else runs away. So you can run away. Go make a cup of tea when I'm about to do that. But if you want to get better at selling, hang around for that. For some people, it'll be the best bit of the call. And then they hang around. But I'm setting it up.
Oh, I love how you did that. That is so genius. I love that. And
That's my topic. I can get away with it.
Yes, but it also calls them into their best. Like you're saying, great successful business owners do these things. They love sales. They're not afraid of sales. So you're inviting them to learn from multiple hats. I love that.
And they're like, I'm not going to be a tea drinker. I'm going to hang around. But the bit that I was trying to get to is the activation messaging. So when I tell I have 3 lessons usually as part of a framework. But what I do for the credibility bit is I save my story for the first lesson. And that way I never have to have a slide that talks about all my achievements. I like going, here are the 3 things that we're going to cover. And the first one is this. And let me begin by telling you a story. I want you to cast your mind back. And then I use that to tell my story. And there's a lesson at the end of it. Yeah. And I'm delivering value. Everybody feels like I'm delivering value, but I've told my story. I've delivered an activation message. I've done it in shorter amount of time. It's my little trick.
Yes, I think that's a great trick. And, it's so, it hits all the points and connects the people to you, saves a little bit of time because you're doing 2 things with one, and they're ready to take action on your exciting offer at the end of the webinar.
Do you spend much time on TikTok or Instagram? Sometimes I like to drop some of my best tips and tactics over there, bite-sized strategies that you can watch and implement extremely quickly. If you're into short-form content, go search Mr. B2B or James Tuckerman on your favorite short-form platform, and I'll see you over there. Now, back to the show. But still, Krista's got a sequence here, and it's 6 in a row, and it's really great. And it's the best way to do it, especially if you've never done it before. The pain piece, we call that the bridge. We go. It's funny you're doing the hands. You were here. You're going to be here.
I guess.
We call it the bridge.
Yeah.
I loved the idea of 2 choices. You can stay the same or change. I'm just going to quickly ask you, Krista, do you have like a free guide or a free resource that I could link to underneath this that we can get people into your world?
Yes, absolutely. And I have a report about how to really goes into depth about how to leverage speaking to fill your offers and goes even deeper in this. So I'm happy to share that.
Cool. I thought you might. So that's good because I'm sure people are listening to this busily taking notes. We talked about 3 big mistakes and now we're working backwards. So already we've ticked the box on this meandering thing. We don't want to be going all over the place. We want to have a structured presentation. That's great. The one back, and this is the guts of the presentation, often where people begin, the content piece. How do you help people come up with their own framework or their own methodology?
I would be really interested to see if you've experienced this too or heard this, but so many coaches feel like I don't have a framework. I don't, everything is unique client to client. And that's true to a certain extent, but it's really mostly not true because if you boil it down to the key steps that you're taking each client through, there's a pattern, there's a rhythm. And so by doing that, and I'll a lot of times work with clients one-on-one to pull that out of them because one of my love languages, as I mentioned earlier, is systems. So being able to help people see their genius too. They're like, oh, I just do this. And it's like, yeah, but that's not like everyday thinking. That's really valuable. So one of the questions I ask and invite everybody to think about too is if someone said, I'm going to give you $1 billion if you help me get my desired result as fast as possible, what steps would you take them through? And You want to do it as quick as possible, only the important necessary steps, not the nice to know things, but what are the key components? And there's usually, 3 to 6 pillars, steps. Sometimes they go in order, sometimes they don't. But when you start seeing that, it not only gives the coach confidence because they're like, whoa, holy cow, I'm a lot smarter than I realized. I've got a framework, but also gives the clients confidence because they have a process to follow. We all are looking to be led. We want to know there's a way. James has a method to help me get results.
And we create a time frame too. So for example, if there's 6 steps and each step is going to take a week, it's 6 weeks. And again, that's far more reassuring for the buyer. How long is this going to take? Well, there's 6 steps. If we can do 1 a week, it's going to be 6 weeks. And that's again, really reassuring for the person. I really like what you just said. If you were to get the outcome, what is the least number of steps that you could deliver in the least amount of time? Because you say I rolled my eyes when you were telling the story before. And that is because it's the same with us. Every client is different. We do something different for all of them. Okay. The reality is if we can double down with our target audience, suddenly the number of scenarios shrinks. If we're focusing on one specific outcome, the number of scenarios shrinks again, which means that we end up with one audience, one outcome that they're seeking. We can distill it down into, a sequence of steps. And then, that's 80% of the journey.
Absolutely. And it's, to me, I feel like, yes, having a system is so helpful to a client. I mean, I love systems myself. I've said that probably 14 times already,
When we say systems equals sanity, we've got these 3 big things that we say. Systems equals sanity, automation equals freedom, community equals clarity. So that one out, well on the same page with that one.
Yes. And it's, to think too that if I worked with anybody, I'm going to feel more confident in their system, in their process. And if they have a process, and if I feel more confident as a client, I'm going to take more action, which what happens when our clients take more action, they get more results. And so it's like a kind of ninja way. People feel confident, so they believe you, they take the steps, they get the results. And oh, wow, look, they achieved the thing they really wanted.
Yeah, the inverse is I do a little bit of something for everyone. And every time I do it, it's going to be different. You just need to trust in me and my magic sauce. And I'm not quite sure how long it's going to take. And every time I pull together a proposal, every time I sign a new client, I'm going to have to pull together a brand new proposal. Yes. And it's going to be tedious for everyone. Or I can go a little bit more narrow with my audience, a little bit more narrow with my outcomes that I'm promising, with my promise. I can go a little bit more narrow with the system. I can add a timeline. Or put it in a box and then someone's feeling so much better. I can also recruit other people to do it for me.
Yes.
I can recruit salespeople to sell it for me. I can do all these different things.
And you even can talk about it in your marketing. Like, it's a topic now. We talk about the system, the steps of it, it's content for years.
Yeah, if there are 6 steps, that creates 6 items of content. If there are 3 things that you need to get right for each of those steps, that suddenly creates 18 items of content. If we're looking at that over weeks, we're talking about 4 months. At the end of 4 months, you can rinse, and repeat, do it 4 times a year, and you're done. Let's swing this back to the third mistake.
Okay.
What was the third mistake?
It was about waiting. Yes, I invite everybody to look in your business. Where are you feeling stuck and where are you likely waiting? Because so many times we think, I got to wait for that person to call me about the podcast, about the speaking engagement. And that's the exact opposite of how it works, or my experience is that we get to go first. We get to lead our business versus waiting for someone else to lead our business. And so I look at this as me raising my hand saying, hey, conference coordinator, I've got some amazing content that's going to help coaches do A, B, and C. Are you looking for speakers? Or this group over here, they're serving this audience, and I know I can offer value. And reaching out, rinsing and repeating, and just really boldly sharing that you've got some content that's going to create an impact for their people.
Do you encourage your people to have a little bit of a kit, or is it just a well-crafted email? How do you do it?
This is probably anti a lot of what people say out there. We got to the $500,000 mark without a speaker page or one sheet or anything. So I think they're wonderful, but I didn't build one or didn't create one till we surpassed that mark. But I do, we'll give our clients templates of emails to send out. And so And that's actually one of the ways when we're working with clients, we actually have an implementation lab where we sit together and we're like, here are our templates. We're going to have you make your templates. Because guess what? When you have a template, you actually do it versus sitting there and thinking, what should I say to Krista? How should I word this? We've got a template. You can take it and tweak it. But the most important thing that I see, or one of the mistakes I see most, is when people tell them everything in the first email. This is my blood type. I was born in this city. I like this dog. I enjoy margaritas, whatever.
It's so chunky in text, big fat paragraphs. I get them all the time.
Yes. Oh, I do too. And I'm like, delete. That's, the quickest thing. But one of the things that I teach and work with clients on is what I call a micro ask. So each email, especially at the beginning, we're asking very simple, easy to answer questions. So it's easy for them to respond, because this weird thing happens with emails is when Krista responds, all of a sudden I'm in a conversation. It's like at a party. When you're in a conversation, it's a lot harder to just walk away from that person than if you're like, oh, I've not even talked to Krista. I don't need to go over there. So we're just wanting to really toss the ball back and forth is kind of how I picture it, with easy questions like, hey, are you the right person for me to connect with?
If you liked this episode, can you do me a huge favor and go leave a review? This helps us get this podcast in front of more people and helps more people get unstuck. It helps more people just like you get more clients, build more authority, attract more opportunities, and build your business in ways that you're gonna love. So go do that now, and I'll see you soon.
I'm thinking about this for me getting guests on my podcast. So, and there's people out there that, you always want to. You're always, not that you're not a god in the space, Krista, but that you always want like an Alex Hormozy or like a Richard Branson, or whatever it is. And I'm thinking about how we're probably not doing that as cleverly as we should. But the micro ask, which is, hey, in my world, it might be, hey, do you do podcasts?
Yes. I mean, it's an easy thing for them to respond. And then it's like a cocktail reception. You're in a conversation.
If it's, you need to speak to my person that does this, then it started, we're in.
Yeah. And it opens the door in a fun, easy way. And I look at it, I think it's because we all want that dopamine hit of delete the email or put it in the sent, whatever that is. So I can respond to Krista's email really quickly. And then it keeps it going versus here's my, blood type, my dog type, my whatever. That doesn't even matter, because who knows, is this person even the relevant person that coordinates, for this association or this group?
This is a slightly curly one. But when it comes to events, we tend to learn about the event after they've already been organized or after they've already happened. Is this sort of like a long-term gain or a slow burn? How do we manage this?
Oh, I love this curly question. And there's two answers to it. So one, I believe that just because you found out about a summit or a conference or whatever that's happening in a month, that doesn't mean for any reason that they're fully booked or that somebody hasn't gotten sick or canceled or had to change. I got booked actually just a couple weeks ago on a summit, and I reached out and just said, hey, I saw that you're doing this great lineup for coaches, and I didn't see any speakers listed that speak about speaking. If that would be valuable to your people, please let me know. And then I ended with the okay, so that was my question that I threw in there at the end, and got an immediate response. Oh my gosh, we're looking for someone, didn't know who to contact. Can you do an interview tomorrow morning? While that's not ideal to have that, but I guess I'm never too big of an ego. Yeah. And then the other piece is to look for and proactively reach out to, one of my favorite places is associations. And most people are like, wah, wah, that's not very sexy. But I'll tell you what is sexy.
They've got big audiences. They've got massive lists. It's actually in their mandate to find people like you to go and speak to their audiences.
Yes. And sometimes they bribe their people with like continuing education credits. So the people are getting bribed to come listen to you in an ethical way. But they're many times hosting quarterly, monthly, or even more events, and they need speakers. So you can do a webinar in person. And so to go out and research, associations that gather coaches, associations that gather plumbers, like the example earlier, and you'll see pages upon pages upon pages. And you just roll up your sleeves, start reaching out, and have fun with the opportunity.
You just made me think of one.
Yeah.
A friend of mine was running a podcast, and when I say a friend, like a friend on social media, like that's someone you have beers with or margaritas with on the weekend, someone that you like connect with occasionally. And I said, hey, listen, you've got your podcast. It was a podcast conference. You got your podcast conference coming up. This is before I had a podcast. I said, I don't have a podcast, but I do speak on a bunch of different topics. If you want me to be a part of it, let me know. I should have written okay. I didn't. But anyway, and then I sent the message, and Ron Slivas, if you're listening, came back and said, no, we'd love to have you. And they paid for my flights, they paid for my accommodation.
Awesome.
I flew all the way to Brisbane. Wait for it. It's the dinner before with all the speakers. We're all hanging out, and I say, so what do you want me to speak on? When do you want me to speak? And he said, listen, James, we just wanted to have you here because we think that you're so great. If someone gets sick or whatever, if there's a break, can you do something then? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And then like on the second day of the conference, of course, there's a guy on the stage. The slides come up. They're the wrong slides. They're slides from a different presentation. He has a mild panic attack type of thing. Not that most people could tell, but other speakers could kind of like see the cogs
the unraveling. Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, the other speaker's in my hotel room. So he burns off. And I watched Ronsley look at the MC, look at me, then they nod, and then the MC says, well, so-and-so is getting this in. We've got a very special treat for you. We've got James Tuckerman to come up on stage. Who's going to do, what are you going to do, James? And I had the time from the back of the room to the front of the room to come up with what I was going to do or talk about. But here's the thing, guys and gals, and this is why it's so important to have people like Krista in your life. I had a framework because I had a topic, I had a framework, and I had a structure, and I could step in and bam. And the funny thing is because I was in such an elevated state, when people filled out the little forms at the end, they said, what was the best bit? And I came in as one of the top 3 speakers, even though I didn't even know what I was going to be speaking about. Yeah.
I love that, and how fun. And also, I know there's people listening to this breaking out in hives at the thought of being called up, that. But like you said, you had a topic, you had your framework, and you were like, sure, I can put this together or present this in my sleep, probably.
It was the walk from the back of the room to the front of the room was so loaded with adrenaline. You've got no idea. Afterwards, I went out to the hallways, and my hands started to just shake. Because it was a big room. So we've actually specifically gone down the one path in the middle here, which is a great place to start, which Krista talked about. If you don't have an audience, you can leverage somebody else's audience. But as we wind up, it just occurred to me that everything that we've just talked about is just as applicable if we're going to be doing a one-on-one call, strategy call or a sales call, or if we're doing a webinar or anything like else. There's probably some nuances, but they're largely the same.
Absolutely. And that's what I think really at the end of the day, if you pull back the pieces, it's uncovering a problem, showing how you can help solve it, and then inviting the person to take a step forward. And it's, if you boil it down to that, which essentially is what sales is. Hey, not that we say, what's your problem, but, why are you on the call? There's a reason you're on the call today. What do you want to be different? Right there. They open up, and that's where you can say, I've got a solution. Are you interested in hearing it? Heck yeah, I want to hear about it. So it really is a framework that can be applied across the board in business.
Well, this has been an extremely rich conversation. Not only did we learn about the ins and outs of selling margaritas to Mexican restaurants, not really, but what we unpacked were 3 of the biggest mistakes, which is so good because it allowed us to reverse engineer that and come up with a strategy for presenting from the stage, pulling together our own framework and getting some of those gigs in the first place. Any final words of advice or wisdom, Krista, before we wind up?
Oh my gosh, I feel like there's got to be something to do with the margarita, but maybe I'm trying to come up with something on the spot here, but I would say just the key is to start way before you feel like you have the credibility or you have all your stuff together. Get out there, raise your hand, and there's nothing like having a speaking engagement get accepted where you're like, guess what? I get to build this. And that's where some of the best talks and the best opportunities come from.
That's going to light a fire under your butt. If someone like books you for a gig, you're gonna get busy. You're gonna get prepared. Great final words of advice. Do not wait. Just go out there and start seeking and soliciting those gigs now. And also find the link that's somewhere around this video and get into Krista's world as quickly as you possibly can. Thank you, Krista. This has been awesome.
Thank you. I had way more fun than I ever imagined.
Shakum. Mic drop.